Okay guys, welcome back. A lot of people have asked me for this help with multiple airflares, how to get multiple airflares. So I made a little list with tips. The first tip is very simple. If your first airflare is not good enough, you can do the second one. You need a good airflare to windmill that looks decent. It's not just a step to windmill. Really have an airflare to a windmill down before you even worry about throwing two guys. That's very important. The second tip is you need to understand what airflare you're actually doing. For example, what we call martial airflare is emphasis on throwing from a pike and landing again in a pike. What we call Korean airflare is more or less what I explained in the low airflare tutorial, that you sort of use the flare technique but add height to it and hop to it. If you do it like punters, you're fully outstretched. Chico, these guys sort of swing very hard, cross-legged and swing. Tsuki is more like handstand, etc. There's many ways to do this move. You need to first understand kind of what you're doing before you throw the second one, because otherwise you're just flopping over and flopping over, but you will never really master it because you're just flying all over the place, right? You need to understand this. So that's tip number one. You need a good airflare to windmill. It can't be too shitty, and you need to have it to the windmill, not just to your feet. Tip number two. So when I did lesson 104, I teach you how a way to do airflare, because there's many ways, and I know many ways. I said, okay guys, when we enter with the power move entrance, we will lose control. This is still true. How do I know this? Well, because sometimes I have students that can do an airflare, but they cannot yet do it from the power move entrance. But as your first airflare to windmill gets good, and you start to, add, you can do it at least. You need to enter from full rotation power move entrance and start training to do that. From that entrance, you do airflare to windmill. Okay? And what you also need is to add more power and strength to it. So you can airflare to flare, it's also very good, but also to the windmill. Airflare to swipe, even better. Airflare to 90, really good if you do high airflares, that's not that hard, right? So, speed, power and rotation are important, guys. Okay, so here is a tip for if you do very low and over the chest airflare. You can't do multiples because your second airflare is too low. So you do the first one, and the second one your hip actually drops. So there's actually a trick to this that will make you be able to throw multiples. And I didn't get this trick, and sometimes I did 3 airflares and the next day I couldn't even do one. Well, the trick is very simple, guys. If you enter your airflare and you add the part where you throw over, this is really where you start to take off. You need to hop or jump from your one arm to the other arm. Don't just fly over like this, jump it. Now, a lot of people use a leg pump for this or this. If that's in your airflare style, that's perfectly valid. But you can actually just do it with the arm. If you just give a hand or push with the arm, your airflare will go up instead of down. And you will be able to land it high enough. And you will also feel the difference with how you normally sort of kind of struggling with airflare to flare and windmill, because you need that pure speed and power. You need it less because you just add that hop to it. So that's for low airflares. And for high airflares, the tip is actually, you need to, if you throw like this, right, very close, like this, you need to open your arms more and throw further and angle lower. So if you're completely in the handstand, you can get stuck in the handstand. It's not that good. You want to angle it lower as you get more control in that airflare to windmill, and open the arms a little bit wider. So just, if you throw like this, right, very close to the head, start opening more. Maybe even go slightly over your chest more. So this will help you a lot with multiple. So for the first airflare, especially if you want to stay very high, you can actually sort of almost walk it, right? But as soon as you want to do multiples, that actually blocks you. You can't really walk multiple airflares very well, right? So make sure you got that. So for low airflares, add hop and master that low airflare to flare and windmill very well before you worry about multiple. And for high airflares, focus a lot on angling a little bit lower than you normally do. You don't have to do it that low, but at least a little bit lower, and opening the arms more so you have more room to throw multiple airflares, guys. Okay, tip number 4. Oh yeah, tip number 4 is very important. Train 1 year, guys. So a lot of times, and I see this all the time, people expect there's a trick to multiple airflares, and once they just find this little trick, they can do multiple airflares. They can do 10 airflares. No, it doesn't work that way, but sometimes there is a trick. I remember when we were training, there was a guy from Japan over here, he was training with us, and he asked me for this tip, right? Because I was giving other guy sort of help with his airflare. He asked me for the tip. I said, man, your airflare is really good. Just add, like I said, that hop to it. Boom, he was able to do 2. So for him, the tip was just this. Don't forget, all he did was a second airflare, which wasn't even that great. He just did the second one. So you need to train multiple airflares. You can't just hope for the best and find a little trip. Every training, you focus on multiples, but you don't just do that. You also combo your airflare as much as going, and you try to have a lot of fun with this airflare. If you don't, what will happen is, yes, you will have the maybe multiple airflare at some point, which usually not, because you're not too comfortable with other things, but also get frustrating as hell, because multiple airflare is kind of a long process, guys. So train combos, but also focus at least a year on getting multiples, but probably multiple years, guys. And try to push the limit, right? Don't just stop at 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. If you can do kind of 2 airflares, but or maybe you can just do only 1, you can't really do the second one. You need to do multiple airflares in 1 combo, preferably using swipes or windmills. Not swipes, sorry, that's what I used, but flares and windmills. So use flare and windmill, even if you need a million flares in between, a million thing, and then do more airflares in 1 combo. But like I said, like just now, I use swipe because I was very good at swipes, and I just did like maybe like 10 swipes in 1 combo to do like 6 airflares. So I did airflare, 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 and I was too low. I did swipe, airflare, swipe, swipe, windmill, swipe, airflare, swipe, airflare. Right, so like that, right? Really long combos actually, but back then I was very good at swipe. Now it sounds really exhausting. But back then that wasn't really a problem for me, and I pushed that limit always till I did 6. So I started maybe training and did airflare, flare, elbow airflare, swipe, airflare, right? Something like that. But at some point I needed to have done 6 airflares in 1 combo, and it helps with your multiples immensely, guys. You need to do this, and you need to master this. And actually, when you look at people that have multiple airflares, they can also always do this. If you do high airflares, by the way, what's funny is that you can actually use spinning handstands and 90s in between. So it's kind of, funny enough, these moves kind of resting moves in a way, so it's not that hard. And if you're very high, you can just keep a spinning handstand, enter another airflare, and it's fine, it's totally fine. It's just more, the problem is kind of that it's lame to do this in a Cypher or a battle, but as a practice method, it's totally legit, guys. Yeah. Okay, so I just talked about, okay, when you do high airflares, you need to angle lower. But for people that do low airflares, or they just can't seem to get the second one, you might want to angle higher. It really helps if you master those spike freezes and freezes in the correct position. So you can really just do freeze to freeze and focus on this a lot, guys. Okay, yeah, so this is something that's very hard to do from very low airflares. I couldn't do it, but basically what you need to do is catch in a one-hand freeze instead of a handstand. If you throw to a handstand, it's kind of cool, I guess, but it's very, very hard to do multiple because you get stuck. So I see this a lot with my student again. That's the same concept with the power move entrance. Throw, catch, throw, catch. Try to focus on landing in the freeze if you can. If you throw so low that you can, just swing on like a flare. Basically, like my tutorial I talked about, like you can do it like a flare. We can also call this kind of Korean air flare. That's sort of how they do it, right? But what we call martial air flare is really emphasizing the freeze to the freeze. So that's a really good way, guys. Okay, and the final tip for now, because you know we can go on forever because there's a million little tips, but it's more about that training. Force the second one. So you do an air flare and you just I'm not high enough for the second one, so I don't do it. Or I'm too high for the second one, I'm stuck in a handstand, force the second one. So let's say you land super high like this, just do this. That's better than not trying it at all, because you get stuck in these moves, you really do. So air flare to windmill and air flare to flare is kind of good combos to do, but don't overdo that too. Force that second one. Like you need to train air flare. Don't forget, this is the most important tip. But also, of course, do combos, but force the second one once you're training him. Over time, you'll basically learn how to do the second one like the first one. And it takes time. Focus on everything, right? So, like I said in the beginning of the tips, good form is necessary, guys. So I can give a million other tips, but follow this and you'll probably do the second and third air flares very, very soon. If not, you know, come back at me with some questions and maybe I can help you. See you next time.
I said I like big butts and again I lie. Who you other brothers can't deny that when a girl walks in with the itty bitty waist and the round thing in your face, you get sprung. You wanna pull out top because you noticed that part was stuffed. Deep in the jeans she's wearing. Oh, I'm hooked and I can't stop staring. Oh, baby, I wanna get with ya and take your picture. And my homeboys tried to warn me, but that butt you got makes. And time to tell you, like what's on me. It capsules everything around me, singing dollar, dollar, big, oh.